Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar. Enjoy listening and watching as addiction experts Mark Sheeran and I cover controversial as well as helpful topics on addiction, how to move past it, and other related subjects. As two of the co-founders of the Freedom Model, Mark and I will give you a completely new perspective on the topics that matter to you. We will take to task the Recovery Society's lies and misinformation and replace them with facts, research, and the methods to move on from addiction struggles without 12-step meetings, rehabs, and the shackles of endless recovery. Let's escape the treatment and recovery trap together and learn. Hey everyone, welcome to the Addiction Solution. I'm Michelle Dunbar.
And I'm Mark Sheeran, and we wrote or co-wrote with Stephen Slate, the Freedom Model for Addictions, Escape, Treatment, and Recovery Trap.
And we also have written additional books in the last couple of years that go with our Solution to Addiction workshops.
Yep.
So we have the Solution to Addiction, Dismantling the Binge Construct, which is primarily for substance use problems. And then we have the Solution to PMO and Sex Addiction book, which comes with the Solution to PMO and Sex Addiction workshop. And we have an exciting announcement to make. And that is that throughout, we're going to start it in 2024, but throughout 2025, we are going to be offering those workshops live again, a couple times a month. And so the very first one is going to be next Monday, the 30th at noon. And that is the Solution to Addiction workshop for substance use problems.
That's right. So the workshops, we have one for substance use and one for PMO. They're different. So you have different audiences. We keep those separated.
Yep.
And that was by request. We've had a lot of requests for live workshops. We have the pre-recorded ones that are cheaper as well. So
they're still available. Yeah.
So we'll be recording these live ones. The best live ones will be recorded, and that will replace the current pre-recorded ones.
Yeah.
So
we made some updates.
That's right. So we have some more new research, some things we're always learning when we coach.
Yes.
And we learn new trends that are out there, new ideas and myths that people are being led by, that we have to debunk. So, so we've incorporated all that in the new workshops.
Yep.
So that's really exciting. The other thing that you need to know is you'll be talking directly in those lives with Michelle and I. There's 3 question and answer sessions, live question and answer sessions within the workshop. So it's a very cost-effective way for you to get the fast track on how to solve your problem for a very affordable price. The lives are going to be about $250 for the event, and the pre-recordeds, I think, are $189. So you have a lot of different options there.
And we decided to do it before New Year's Eve because we want you to have a great New Year's Eve and not have to recover through the 3rd.
or the whole year to 2025 for that matter. For
right.
Some
There's no reason to wait. There's no magic thing that happens on January 1st I can change today. And it's really when you decide I'm going to do that on January 1st and you're seriously hungover, boy, that is no fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the first PMO live workshop will be, I think I said the second week in January, but that will be announced. And then it'll be announced before the end of the year what the dates will be.
The other thing you should know about these live events or the pre-recorded, whichever you choose to purchase or be a part of, is whatever you pay, whether it's the $250 or the $189, can be credited towards future coaching if that coaching is signed up for within the next 6 months of you watching the live event. So you don't lose your money. It gets credited towards your future coaching if that's something you choose to do.
Yep, absolutely. So I guess what we're gonna talk about today is the importance of persistence, especially when you're struggling with self-doubt over anything.
Yeah. So we want to talk about self-doubt because, Michelle and I just had a long breakfast where we were talking about this and our own personal struggles with self-doubt. And I think that when it comes to, and I'll speak for Michelle here, when it comes to Michelle and I, we are very persistent people. We
Mhm.
don't have a big issue with persistence. But when you're persistent and you have a persistent self-doubt, that can make for very long periods of time of struggle or a low grade struggle. Persistence in and of itself in any activity will get you through 90% of a problem.
For sure.
But then the self-doubt part has to be let go at some point. At some point, you persistently get through things, which then proves to you that you can overcome whatever the challenge might be. Or the self-doubt will sabotage the persistence and end it or
Yeah.
marginalize your ability in it, which can be very painful. And it doesn't really matter if it's a goal to get your doctorate or it's a goal to quit substances or a goal to quit PMOing, whatever it might be. Um, you have to come to grips with, everybody does, their self-doubt and shut that shit down.
Yeah, it prolongs
The need for
the
persistence.
need for persistence. If you find yourself trying to solve a problem or trying to achieve a goal of some sort, and and the obstacles, there's always challenges, right? Always obstacles and challenges thrown along your way. And well, the question is, when I hit one of those challenges, that is when self-doubt becomes, like, for sometimes for me, almost second nature, where I'm like, oh, maybe I'm going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Maybe this is, maybe I can't do this. And that's when that's when you have to squash it and say, self-doubt never comes from a positive place.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a great point.
do you know, like, it's now you think, well, there's a challenge here. So how can I get around it? How can I overcome it? You can think those things. But if when the challenge is there, you think I shouldn't do this, that's not coming from a positive place, right?
That's right. So there's so much here. First, I wanna talk to all of you out there. Being a human being is hard.
Yes.
Being a human being on planet Earth is very hard. And I know there are people out there that say, no, life should be easy, and I've had a blessed life. And I think that's wonderful if you've had a blessed life. And some of us have had not a blessed life where everything did come with difficult strings attached. And some people had downright horrible upbringings and horrors in their life, So there's this wide array of human experience, but I think fundamentally we can all agree that it's challenging. And it can be really fucking sad and difficult. So I want to I know this sounds negative. It's not.
No.
It's recognizing that all of you out there at some point in your life are going to deal with something that seems insurmountable. And there are certain realities about the physical world we live in that maybe we don't have control over. For instance, terminal cancer or something like that, where there's very little control. And or the death of a loved one, the inevitability of death is one that none of us can escape, right? So there's just this physical thing, this physical world we live in, the need for money, hugely stressful for a lot of people. The need to feed ourselves, to put our kids through college, whatever it might be. There's all these challenges. So I just want to frame it out that we understand that. And we've had plenty of really difficult times in our life and lives. That's number one. Number two is there comes a point where I think the number one way that you can keep persistence rolling is by not allowing yourself the privilege of self-pity.
Yes.
Self-pity is not an inevitable state of mind. Self-pity is a chosen privilege that you give yourself. And
it's an indulgence.
Yeah. So somewhere I remember being extremely run by the world. I felt like a pinball in a giant game that was really cruel. And I felt like I just was a raw reactionary nightmare. That's what I was living in. And I had a lot of self-pity. And that kept me in this state of endless failure, because self-pity has no value except to repeat failing behaviors. It can't do anything else. It has no other purpose. It keeps you static or going backwards. That's its purpose.
Yeah.
And some people like myself, for periods in their lives, were very good at indulging in it. And that is a really caustic habit. That once there comes a point where you may say to yourself, like I did, I no longer accept self-pity as something I'm allowed to have. And I say it like that. So I can feel myself roll into it when circumstances really suck. And I go, nope, I'm not going down this path. I refuse. And I immediately get into a persistent sort of problem-solving mode. And that shortens the life cycle of misery dramatically.
Yeah. Well, you can be, and we talked about this morning, you can get yourself in, maybe if you don't allow yourself to indulge in self-pity, right? So you're that person that you're like, nope, I'm not going to indulge in self-pity. And then you stay persistent, but you can still be someone who is focusing so much on the problems that you have, on the things that are going wrong. And in your mind, you're thinking, I'm trying to solve them, but you're not.
That's right.
You're not. You're staying persistent, but you're still thinking what's running through your mind. And this is something I've struggled with. What's running through my mind are all the things that are wrong, all the things that are wrong.
Well, that's a case where you're staying persistent in a static condition. That's where you're staying persistent at being self-pitying, or staying persistent at
focusing on problems,
at negativity. Yeah.
Yeah. And focusing on problems, and in your mind, thinking about solutions that are not realistic, or a good example is thinking that you need some big cataclysmic miracle to solve your problem, right? You're looking for that viral video that or you're looking for something, your spouse to do something dramatic and romantic that they've never done before, to try and save your marriage, or you're looking for something big to happen, and or you're winning the lottery. I mean, that's a big thing for a lot of people, that it's like, if I just had this much money, then my problems would go away. And so you're constantly focusing on I don't have enough money, or I don't have the right marriage, or I don't have, and you're thinking of ways that can solve it that are not really viable.
Right.
And so you may think in your mind, I'm still persisting in what I'm doing. But you're persisting with a focus on the wrong things.
Yeah. Yeah. You can be persistent at remaining no different than you were as an adolescent.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes, and this is a classic example, let's say that you have age appropriate reactions to partying, like perceptions. Age appropriate is at 15, sitting around a bonfire with your friends, drinking beer, smoking weed, and having a good time, and indulging in fantasy and acting like an ass is age appropriate. It's tolerated as long as you're not doing anything illegal. It's tolerated to a certain degree by adults and the rest of the world to a certain degree.
It's expected.
It's expected and it's tolerated. And because it's age appropriate. And if you keep the mythology alive that alcohol is the operative force in that social structure, allows you to be feeling pretty, it allows you to socialize, it allows you to talk to girls or boys, it allows you to do all these things, and you keep that at then age appropriate idea, but then you keep it where it's not age appropriate, where mythology no longer works well. For example, now you're 30, you're still acting like an ass at the bar when most of the people aren't.
Right.
So now you're persisting in keeping something that doesn't fit in the current circumstances. And there are a lot of times where people don't realize that persistence can work against them. And then there's other places where you have to look at the quality of persistence. What are you persisting in? And so you can be really persistent in depression, self-loathing,
self-doubt.
Mythology that is damaging, lying to yourself. You can be persistent in serial dating, in very terrible relationships. You can be persistent in all these things. So there's a tendency in the self-help world to talk about persistence. But what people don't realize is the quality of their thoughts matter in persistence.
It sure does.
You can persist yourself right to death with a suicide if you persist in enough self-pity.
Yes.
Which I almost did twice. I had 2 suicide attempts when I was young. So I think it's then there comes a point where you say, I need to think more clearly about what I'm doing. I need to think more clearly about the results I'm getting from my thoughts and my beliefs. Is this belief serving me?
Yeah.
In some positive, wonderful way? If I persist in my self-pity, is it really getting me the results I want? Or does it land me in an insulated, lonely place? Now, you may want that because you don't want the risk of going out and having relationships. So the persisting in self-pity might be of value to you.
Yeah.
Which then ends in depression, right? Because you feel futile, but you may actually persist in your chosen desire to be depressed rather than take on the challenge of building new relationships and getting new ideas and working at coming up with new belief systems.
Yeah.
So it depends on where your persistence is.
Yeah. And I want to talk about persistence on the opposite side of things now, which is recognizing your progress, which we talk about a lot. So if you're being persistent in mindful, let's say you want to solve a substance use problem or a PMO problem or whatever you have, and you're persistently you've watched the workshop, maybe you've done some coaching, and and there was in our live yesterday, we had a really great our Q&A, live Q&A that we have for our online program subscribers. We had a really great conversation about this, about self-doubt and persistence, where this person has made tremendous progress in the last few months. She got the workshop, she had some coaching, and is probably her problem is solved, right? But it required her not only to be persistent with mindful drinking, and really questioning the benefits, right? This was a learning process for her, but it was also important for her to be persistent in recognizing her progress and how much different she was thinking, and that having, 2 completely non-drinking days is huge progress.
Yeah.
Or having a few nights where her drinking was cut in half, huge progress, right? So sometimes we get stuck looking for this dramatic, epiphanies, like incredible epiphanies, where all of a sudden you're going to be struck sober or struck feeling like, I don't like this thing anymore, instead of being persistent and realizing, oh no, I don't think the same about this as I used to.
Yeah. There's there's so much there too.
I know.
All or nothing.
All or nothing.
Whenever we have an all or nothing attitude with persistence, that can be a trap as well.
Yep.
So there's, I always go back to the self-help platitudes that permeate the web and social media platforms. And I can't stand when they talk about any of these concepts in sort of this black and white way, because when you take the idea that, be persistent no matter what kind of thing, and then you get somebody who's a very black and white, all or nothing thinker, what that means is I'm going to be persistent, and then fail and fuck it and go off and then go off the deep end, because it's all or nothing. It's polar opposites. It's black and white. Well, persistence is not like that. Persistence to progress is a journey. Mm-hmm. It's a journey filled with all kinds of twists and turns. What you're saying, though, is I'm committed to self-improvement over a period of time, and I'm not going to quit.
That's it.
So if you hold that, and I'm not going to give in to self-pity, I tell you, if you do what I just said, rewind this a number of times, if you do that formula for your whole life, you'll have a good life. No matter what happens, you will navigate with your positive drive into very good places. You will have bad things happen to you like all humans do, but you will navigate through it, through the stickiness of it, through the muddiness of it. And it's not a pretty picture. All or nothing people want things to be perfect, laid out, and they'll try to will themselves into a black and white world. They'll try to make that happen. And guess what the world's going to do? Shatter that shit. It won't allow you to do that because the world is way too big and you're too small. So you're not going to will things into a black and white cage. And what you'll do is you'll set yourself up for imminent failure over and over. And then if you adhere and have a little persistence with self-pity, you're fucked. Yeah. I mean, you're going to go down some really horrible roads. So adaptive thinking is super important. Now, this is stuff I teach in coaching. For instance, I have some absolutes, some black and white things that I might say. Don't indulge in self-pity, because I know that self-pity has no redeeming feature.
Right.
So that's pretty fucking black and white. Yeah. It's like, if you can teach yourself not to go there, you cut your misery down in your life by 50% instantly. Yeah. Instantly. You instantly improve. You've just went up 10 layers. But if I were to say to you, you have to be persistent no matter what, in some sort of black and white way, well, Jesus, there's no direction with that. And that's not reality. Just being persistent and also being adaptable, thinking, being mindful. Is this good for me? Is this serving me? As you're persistently improving each day, then you're going to navigate, plus no self-pity. Now your life is consistently going up no matter what happens.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there, but try to avoid the self-help social media platitude meme style things. Yeah. Because a lot of that shit is just nonsense. It's just not reality.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell a story about a woman that I follow on Instagram, and I think I've been following her for about 4 or 5 years, and her Instagram handle is Fat Girl Fed Up. And I think I started following her. She'd already lost like 150 pounds. She was like 400 pounds at one point. And so she started on this journey. She made it very public. And she lost probably 200 pounds. And then she got this life-threatening illness that put her in the hospital for months. She was dying. And it's a rare condition. And she had open sores all over her body. And her husband and her lost weight together. And her husband posted to keep us updated on what was going on with her, but at points it looked like she wasn't going to make it. And this woman not only survived it, I mean, we were just watching her life Like this, I'm like, this is real shit that's happening. Not only did she survive it, she put on a bunch of weight back on, but she stayed persistent.
Right.
She now has lost even more weight. She's absolutely within where she wanted to be. So she came back from all of this. She had put on a lot of the weight, and then she just was like, started over again. She was like, grateful that she survived the illness. I'm sure there were points in time when she had self pity. I'm sure there were points where she was like, why is this happening to me? I'm sure she had points of self doubt, but she didn't indulge.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the key. Is it's okay to feel down.
yeah,
And I, when I tell people sort of, don't indulge, I'm not saying not to feel
because
self-pity
you're gonna.
or get hit in the gut by life.
It
Trust me, man.
happens.
I had a lot of bad shit happen to me as an innocent child. And so I understand powerlessness. I understand horrible shit. And I can tell you that the key phrase is indulging in self-pity.
Exactly.
And even as a kid, I can remember there were periods where I indulged and became suicidal, and it was really horrible. And then there are other periods where I just couldn't take that anymore. And I said, you know what? Fuck this. I'm gonna do some things to improve my life. And that's what I did. And I prevailed against all odds with some really terrible situations and difficult times. So I'm not saying it's not going to be a mixed bag. And I'm also empathetic to the plight of what people go through. And some people go through things that are downright unbelievable
Yeah.
in a negative way. But it doesn't change the fact. Doesn't change the fact that if you don't indulge, you feel something, you embrace it, you move forward. You feel something, you embrace it, you say, yes, I recognize that I feel self-pity right now. It's okay. I'm going to let it go now.
Yeah.
And when you do that, and I think it's important to say that when I'm coaching somebody, one of the first lessons I do after I build the puzzle with them in the first session is I say, okay, now I want you to let go of your guilt, let go of your shame, let go of your self-pity, let go of all that, put that on a shelf for now. And I want you to embrace your behavior. And they're like, you want me to drink heavily? And I go, yes, because I want you to do it mindfully. Now, obviously I want you to do it safely. Or if it's a PMO problem or whatever the habit is, we don't want to hurt anybody. So figure out a way to do it without hurting others, and then embrace it, indulge in it a bit, and see if it has value, because now we've separated out the self-pity and all the negative emotions with it. We're just looking at it objectively. And if you can do that and you can be mindful about it, my God, you will learn a lot. But we have to separate all this negativity out of it, all this judgment to ourselves. And now I'm not saying to go on a 5-day bender and damn near kill yourself. That's not the point. What I'm saying is if you're a heavy drinker that does that, drink some, figure out what the value of that is. And because you have to figure out your truth. And if you do that persistently and you're honest and you're adaptive thinking and you're analyzing and you're mindful, in the next session number 2, we're going to have a lot to talk about.
For sure.
We're going to have a lot to talk about. A lot of problem solving can happen. And now we're talking without the guilt and the shame and all that clouding the situation. You're not living in absolutes. I must abstain. No, we're talking about what is real.
Yeah.
And that is that you really like indulging in the drink or the habit or the fetish, and why. And then by the third session, I give different, based on that second session, I'm going to give different homework assignment. And that can be very, very different for each person, depending on what you learn in that first indulgence. And that's persistence. That's looking at something, relentlessly looking at it with honesty, without the shame, without the guilt, and looking at it and saying, why do I do this? And how does that play into what we've been talking about, in our coaching sessions? So persistence can mean a lot of different things, but the point is, if you gauge your behaviors on less self-pity, more in the idea of being empathetic, humble, adaptive, mindful, and non-judgmental to others and to yourself, boy, I tell you, and you're persistent at that, your life will completely fucking transform.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it works. So, yeah.
And the other thing is, when the challenge, when you meet the challenges as you're trying to make this change in your life, you're trying to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve, and you have those challenges, and then the self-doubt, which is not necessarily self-pity, but self-doubt, like, oh, maybe I can't do this.
Yeah, sure.
Comes in. It's important to know that that's normal.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And you don't have to listen to it.
Right.
You don't have to indulge in that either.
Just put one foot in front of the other when that happens.
And
just
say, no, I am going to do this.
Yeah. And sometimes that's blind faith. Sometimes, especially, but I'm telling you, if you don't allow self-pity to be in that equation,
yeah,
when you hit those spots of self-doubt and fright,
yes,
you can go, I'm feeling this.
Yep.
I accept that I feel this, but I'm going to step forward nonetheless. And what we call that is courage.
That's what courage is.
And so when you move forward faithfully in the absence of anything that tells you that things are going to turn out better, that's faith and courage. So you just have a little bit of courage, man. The worst that's going to happen is you're going to fail at whatever you failed at before, or it's going to turn out bad in some way. Okay. It's not like you haven't weathered storms before.
Exactly.
But the truth of the matter is usually when we work on faithfully moving forward with a good intention, good things usually come out of that.
Yeah. That's a great spot to end.
I think so. So listen, if you'd like coaching, but you're skeptical about it, or you're not sure you want to make that investment, get the new live workshops. Join us for the event. You'll also get an opportunity to talk to us. Your identity is hidden within that process.
It's totally private.
It's totally private. I mean, there'll be other people there, but you can't see them. They can't see you. It's not like some weird Zoom thing. And then you can test out talking to us and see that this isn't nonsense, that it's real and we care. And what we're going to say is going to make sense because we're very logical. And frankly, we're great at what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So go to thefreedommodel.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and we'll be announced and TikTok. We'll be announcing the dates for those. You'll be able to see them on the website. The first couple should be up by now. But we'll also, if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be links below our YouTube video, so you can click on those links and enroll.
All right. See you there.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody.
Take care.
Hey, Merry Christmas.
Yes.
If you celebrate Christmas or whatever you celebrate this time of year around the winter solstice, and Happy New Year, everyone.